Hello and welcome to Beyond the Badge. I'm your host, Middlesex Sheriff Peter Koutoujian. In past shows, we've focused on issues related to the opioid crisis, homeland security, and scam prevention, among many other topics. Today, we're going to shift the focus a bit and talk about municipal issues. While folks across the country are focused on the presidential election, my guests today are focused on dealing with the infrastructure, educational, and public safety issues that confront our cities and towns each and every day. Arthur Vigeant is the mayor of Marlborough, now in his third term. He is an accountant by trade. Prior to his election as mayor in 2011, he served 9 terms on the Marlborough City Council. Bob Halpin is the town manager in Framingham. Prior to his assuming this post, he's held similar positions in Westford, Gardner, North Andover, and Pepperell. He also served as the first president and CEO of the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council. Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to join me. I hope this will be a really informative discussion. Each of you work in different roles in government. One as a town manager, one as a mayor. Can you tell us the difference in the roles and maybe the benefits to each without getting into issues that may be up for grabs right now?
Sure. Well, go. So the town manager in Framingham operates under a fairly strong special act called the Town Managers Act. I serve as the Chief Administrative Officer. I'm appointed by a 5-member elected Board of Selectmen that is reflected in that charter as the Chief Policymaking Board for the town. So my role as the Chief Administrative Officer is to be able to execute those policies. Mm-hmm. I hire and fire the entire municipal side of the town organization, and largely accountable to the selectmen to getting things done that are consistent with their sense of priorities and their goals for the town. In
your system, who's the boss? I mean, you're kind of the boss, but are the selectmen your bosses? Or I guess in the members of the community are your boss entirely, but
in the broader sense.
More specifically, is it the selectmen that are technically your boss?
It really is, and I give the selectmen a lot of credit in Framingham. They've been very effective at guiding through policy statements. And there are particular policies and particular things that I'm involved with that individual board members are interested in and want to be involved with. Mm-hmm. But the board has been very effective at kind of laying out some goals and some policies that they feel move Framingham forward. And I've been fortunate to be able to bring together a very talented staff that each year makes progress on achieving those goals. So the board is the boss. Under the charter, I have a lot of authority and a lot of discretion in terms of carrying out actions that advance.
So you're to execute basically the decisions that you make collaboratively.
Exactly.
Mayor?
I have 39,000 bosses.
Yeah,
there you go.
Right.
I'm elected every 2 years, and the whole thing is about trying to get the job done, do it effectively and efficiently while you're there, working with the city council, the department heads, the boards and commissions, the school committee, and keeping things rolling in a good direction. But the ultimate say is with the voters every 2 years.
Right. And what do you think? I mean, you particularly, Mayor, any feelings about the benefits of mayor versus town manager? And by the way, I will say this, I don't ask you to say it, but sometimes having those 2-year terms as mayor can be very difficult for a town, not just the mayor, him or herself, but the town, because there's a constant churning, is not a set vision that can then be executed over a few years. It's constantly having to be reevaluated and under the context of a political view sometimes too. So the 2 years, I think a 4-year term is a better one, but what about the difference in the roles of each one?
Well, I first of all, I agree with you. If anyone that's been in a leadership position trying to get things accomplished in a 2-year period, it's sometimes very difficult when you're trying to take on some of the larger projects. So 4 years would be better, but again, that's a charter change in the city of Marlborough. There's been one shot at it and didn't go too far, but we deal with the 2-year terms, and it's worked well for us. But the ultimate decision maker is really the voters, and you can get elected to a position with really good personality and no experience at all, which is pretty scary sometimes, but I guess we have that all the way up through elected office through the president.
That's right. You get what you elect, basically, right? Any thoughts about town manager versus mayor at all, sir?
Well, I think that there are two ends of kind of the governance spectrum that when you have an elected chief executive, there's a degree of accountability and responsibility that probably is not reflected in the role of a town manager. The selectmen kind of get that feedback on how well they're doing every 3 years.
Right.
And then the manager brings a unique set of managerial skills and experience and training to actually get things done. So I think they just cover this accountability and responsibility that I think is reflected in the elected nature of the mayor as CEO, and then there's kind of effectiveness and efficiency and the ability to get things done that's reflected at the town management end of things.
I think you see it a lot with trying to get different things accomplished too. The fact that a lot of decisions are made by the city council, they're the legislative body of the city. I think we see it mostly with the school budgets. And if you have a superintendent that's used to working with towns, you know, they're out there trying to get all the parents involved and come to the town meeting and make sure you support our budget. With the city form of government, we have 11 city councilors, got to keep the majority of those members happy to get the funding needed to move something forward. But they make the majority of the decisions, whereas with the town, Bob can be working on something for a long time. Town meeting comes up, the people that come into town meeting maybe don't have all the information that Bob or the selectmen do, and they shoot it down, and you know, time to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, right. It seems to me that in some ways the town manager helps insulate the direct effect of politics to some degree. Might be healthy, might be unhealthy. It always really depends on the personnel involved, who the mayor is, who the town manager is, and who that city council or board of aldermen or selectmen are really kind of makes a big difference on that, I imagine, too, whether you have that relationship. Well, you're both leaders of large organizations, and leadership is an important quality that you both have, that you both do possess, and you need to possess in that. From a leadership and management point of view, and we'll speak about resources, but what are the toughest challenges that you're facing today? And we could speak about resources, but then beyond resources, what are some of those toughest challenges, Mayor?
If I had to name 3 of them, I have a transient school population that comes through, and a lot of English learners that are in our school system today. So that's difficult to try to, first of all, figure out how many are coming in. You never know when they start walking through the door, and making sure we're educating those kids properly. The opioid situation is just it's just everywhere throughout the state, throughout the country, and dealing with that. The long term, I think, bar none, the biggest issue we're going to be facing in Metro West is transportation. You know, and I think Bob and I, you know, have started working on that together, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, I'll share. I think a challenge in Framingham is the same kind of demographic change that the mayor referred to in Marlborough. Is the people that lived in Framingham are now older, moving into retirement, bring a fair amount of wealth and income into that retirement. And there's a new generation that's younger, that's much more diverse. Because they're earlier in their career, may not have all the disposable income that a long-term resident has, and much of that does find itself into the school budget as a unique set of challenges, as people come with a different language than English and a different set of needs and lower incomes. All of that is kind of playing out in the Framingham school system. I have a unique challenge in Framingham around buildings, municipal buildings in particular, which have not been maintained and kept up to date.
Right.
So we have a long list of deferred maintenance and space needs. And heading that list is a new school that will have to be constructed sometime in the next couple of years to keep up with enrollment growth.
Right.
And I have to share the same sense of transportation infrastructure as infrastructure that grew up out of the post-World War II boom that was very low-density residential, spread out, and the traffic and moving people around Framingham is a unique challenge. In managing that in a substantially built-out community where the land use pattern is pretty much in place is a unique challenge.
Well, no one probably expected, no one planned for that much population to be spread out to Framingham, never mind to the full 495 belt. And so tell us, in your previous experience in Merrimack Valley, could you tell us a little bit about the transportation infrastructure? I'm sure it was probably the same situation up there, and what does that bring to a community?
The infrastructure in Framingham grew up around the notion that you had a detached single-family home, you drove your car to work, you drove down to Route 9 to do your shopping, and a lot of what I've tried to generate by way of community discussion is the way you kind of mitigate those impacts today is to have more density in a mixed-use residential, retail, office environment that gets people out walking around and less reliant on an automobile.
Right.
And when you've experienced basically a low-density residential suburban lifestyle, the notion of taking a crossroads and saying, you know what, let's create some retail, let's create some office, and let's create some townhouse-style living.
Right.
That's a very, very different model for
Not
the
a
future.
self-contained unit, but almost like you can actually live your life fairly well within that unit and then go outside as you need.
And live it as a pedestrian or a
Right,
cyclist or
right.
somebody that is a little less dependent on an automobile.
They were moving in that direction down in Westwood, I believe. Was there
Yes,
not a large
Westwood
project
Station.
they were talking about that? And I don't even know where that was, but that
Yeah.
seemed like a great vision, and then it ran into its issues
Yeah.
implementing that as well, didn't they?
Yeah, and I think both of us have downtown areas that have the potential to be very transit-oriented in their future development. The mayor can speak to Marlborough, but we have a commuter rail station in downtown Framingham that puts you in South Station within 45 minutes, in less time if it's an express. So trying to kind of create that residential density that allows people to live within a 5 or 10 minute walk of the train station and get into Boston
Right.
is a large part of our downtown strategy. And I know there's similar thought process going on in Marlborough.
Yeah, we don't have the train station
Yeah.
anymore. That went away many moons ago. But we do. We just changed over the zoning down there to give more density downtown. Have some mixed-use buildings down there. We have one proposal coming in for more housing down there, so we're kind of excited about it. We just did an overlay district down where the old digital HP building was.
Yeah.
Well, now we have the mixed use of two great tenants with GE Healthcare and Quest Diagnostics. We have a new apartment complex with Avalon Bay. We have a new hotel down there with the Hilton. We're going to be putting in small strip mall for convenience type items, a bank, a coffee shop, a dry cleaners, and have a daycare center right there. So people are rolling out of bed, the younger people rolling out of bed, going to work all day, going out and having a bite to eat and
Right.
enjoying some friends till late in the morning and being able to do it the next
Right,
day.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
something
right,
we can
yeah,
do, but
right.
they can still do it.
Right. Yeah, and not spending as much time on the roads
That's right.
and worrying about maintaining their family life while doing that too. Well, we know that it was already mentioned. There's no community in the Commonwealth that's not suffering from the opioid epidemic. I know that both of your communities and each of you have been leaders on this. How are each of you dealing with the situation? I know, Mayor, you've been really stepping out in front as well on this. What are you doing in Marlborough to help deal with this problem?
For me, the last year, I think it's been just really getting an education on the whole thing and trying to understand it a little better and what we can do to make a difference and what we can't do, that really has no effect. And we started the coalition with help from you and the DA. We have the ambulance service on it, have my health department on it, fire and police are on it, in trying to educate the school students to realize how bad of an issue this is. Stay away. And I was surprised that when we started talking about educating, we were talking about the high school kids, and I was kind of informed, that's
Yeah,
too
right.
late.
It's
We
too
got to
late.
get down in the middle school and
Right.
even the elementary school.
Right.
Yeah.
We just had Chris Herring come out and speak to the kids about a month ago, and really had an impact. We're still hearing from the kids today that, they really thought about what he was saying with all his issues that he went through. We've had a couple coalitions in the city, but my feeling was I needed a strong group, give us some direction, educate the kids out there. Obviously, there's a big need for beds, but I think beds need to come at a level above mine,
Right, right.
The governor's obviously talking about it, even the president's been talking about it, but we
Right.
definitely need more beds, and we have to address this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share the notion that this has been a tremendous education in the scale and scope of this problem and the underlying causes. I agree. A lot of our effort has been through the Framingham Youth Development Collaborative, which is something which Middlesex County DA
Right, yes.
Margaret
Yep.
Marion Ryan
Yep.
plays a key role in. And I have a survey here from the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey that basically says if you're a freshman, in the freshman class, 2.9% of those students have had some exposure to prescription drugs.
Right.
By the time they're a senior, it's an 11.7% increase,
Right.
or
Yeah,
a portion of
right,
the senior
right.
class. So a lot of our outreach in a preventative kind of way has been early intervention with students, early intervention with young adults. And then other than that, it is really a great need to pursue this regionally, that this epidemic doesn't stop at a town boundary.
Right.
Because of the nature of Framingham as a center of activity in Metro West, there is a larger display of this problem, but it is an epidemic throughout Metro West, and we're working increasingly with surrounding towns to be more regional. It's a law enforcement, public health, and educational
That's right.
effort.
That's right.
Together with what the governor and the legislature are trying to put in
That's
place.
right. And as always, be aware, and for anyone that's out there watching, that in the Sheriff's Office, we offer the Strike 2 program where we actually bring in someone. I speak often out there, but also we can bring in someone that is serving time, usually a young person. Always pretty sad. The stories are almost always identical, speaking to some of the students in a responsible way about the choices they're making.
High school, middle school.
I think we should be doing more middle school. We generally do high school. That's where communities are more comfortable, if they're comfortable at all, right? I mean, stepping in and speaking about these uncomfortable subjects like this and teen dating violence, many communities don't want to speak about it all because they don't like anyone to think they have a problem.
Yeah.
If they do, they'll bring you into the high school. And sometimes it's around those assemblies pre-prom, because you want to make sure people aren't going to make mistakes on that evening when they're feeling a little full of life and excited about the future. But it's something, quite honestly, that we should be stepping into middle school. And we've got programs that we can offer to middle schoolers that are age appropriate. Matter of fact, I'm going to an elementary school very soon to speak about choices. So these are things that you could put in because it is about choices. People don't end up incarcerated because of, or even generally as addicts because of one bad choice. It's a series of bad choices they made that finally caught up to them. And we all make bad choices. Yep. Sometimes we make a series of or a few bad choices or a series. But you don't just make one bad choice and end up in a place of incarceration. It's a series of choices you make, and sadly their stories are so similar to each other and so similar many times to that audience we're speaking to. So, we've always got that out there for you as another way to discuss this. But you're right; it comes down to law enforcement and healthcare and a regional approach. And speaking of regional approaches, we know that a lot of collaboration occurs between governments, both federal, state, and local. But also between governments on the same level, local governments. I'm assuming that you have some collaboration, maybe or maybe not between your two communities, but with other communities around you. Anything going on with those?
So in Framingham, we are a substantially built out community with two very significant centers of economic activity. One at exit 13, which we share with Natick. It's called the Golden Triangle.
Yes.
And the other is at exit 12, which is our technology park in 990 Corporate Center, which we share with Sherburne. Right. So a lot of our discussion these days is how Framingham, in the case of Natick, well, I suppose how Framingham, Natick, and Sherburne work together to advance economic development in those two areas in a way that works for all three communities. Right. So it's a Framingham-Sherburne conversation at the western end of Route 9 in Framingham, and it's a Framingham-Natick conversation at the eastern end.
It's interesting.
And it's around infill development, maybe a little bit more density.
Right.
In Framingham's case, we're again interested in injecting a little bit of housing and retail and some after-hours vitality that again younger workers are looking for, and carrying that out in isolation of Sherburne and Natick would be would be unfortunate, but would also be a missed opportunity.
Well, it's interesting you say that because it's the center of economic development that actually almost force you to have those collaborations in many ways that others might not too.
Correct.
When I was a prosecutor in Middlesex County, of course, I covered Marlborough District Court, but also Framingham and Natick District Courts, and I remember the sharing of resources, of tax dollars, of criminal justice or public safety dollars that had to be kind of watched for each department as well, because each of them benefited from this economic development. But with this development also, there were issues that we had to deal with on a public safety level as well.
And then clearly on the transportation front, we're trying to do more.
Yeah, we, as a region, we've been trying to work on that. We just had a summit out there last week and worked really well, you know, talking to Northborough and Westborough and Framingham, Southborough, trying to come at this with one mind, you know, to try to move people around the best we can. We've done some regionalization with Veterans Director in Sudbury. We have some work going with Hudson along the way. And I mean, I've talked to Tom Moses in Hudson several times about different things, talked to Bob in the past if we have an issue or a question or something, you know, we've talked regularly. So it's important to have people around you that you can work with. But as Bob said, the economic development thing, we have the engine out here, we have the people out here, the great skilled workforce, and we just got to piece it all together. And if someone comes up from New Jersey and picks Framingham instead of Marlborough, my feeling is the rising tide floats all boats.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we're good with, you know, bringing them to the area.
And
Right.
engine is exactly the word to be used. If you take Boston out of the equation for obvious reasons,
Right.
you know, we're second only to the Cambridge North
Really?
region in
Really?
terms of job creation and employment and income. That this is a dominant engine for economic activity in
This
Massachusetts.
is the Metro West,
Metro West.
495 belt.
495,
yeah,
Right.
exactly. And Marlborough shares in that, Framingham shares in that, Natick shares in that.
Southborough, Westborough, you know, Northborough, that strip up and down Holliston,
Yeah, the
Hopkinton,
boroughs, yeah.
and you know, we got to keep an eye on 495. That transportation issue comes up again. 495 is 128 15 years ago.
Right, right,
And,
right,
and
right.
we're not paying attention to it yet. We need to.
Right, and 128 is a problem that impacts
problem,
everyone.
Yeah.
I guess it's a problem that's kind of good. Jay Ash, the Secretary of Economic Development, had said he loves traffic, which I find, you know, I think many people were cringing about, but the fact is, to him, that means, you know, you're having
Growth.
economics
Exactly.
and growth and
Sure.
success, and with it comes that pain of missing or being late for appointments when you didn't realize there was going to be so much traffic in the middle of a day, which is inevitably what happens. I imagine also when you're sharing and collaborating, it allows you a certain sense of peace in the fact that you realize you're not the only one going through all these problems, but that you're sharing in this. Because I know I feel that way when I'm speaking with other sheriffs or chiefs of police. I suddenly say, oh, it's not just me. They're having the same problems. So, you know, so you actually feel some reassurance that we're all doing this together too.
Sure.
No, I you know, 4 years ago when I started as mayor and went to a couple of the mayor's meetings, Mike McGlenn, who's the dean that just retired, he told us all, he said, you know, you got a problem, bring it to all of us. Because
Right.
we've all faced it somewhere along the way.
Right.
You could take our advice or not take our advice,
Right.
but I guarantee you we faced it before. So
Right.
just bring it to the table and we'll talk about it. So it's great to have resources where you can make a phone call, like I say, to Bob or to one of the mayors and say, hey, you know, how do I deal with this? And they're always there to help.
And that's the part of the commonality. Now, when I became sheriff, I had been a prosecutor, and many probably thought you're a prosecutor, you can become a sheriff. Or someone who's been a police officer, you become a sheriff. Quite honestly, I think almost a social worker background is a really great talent. And Mike Ash, who's the dean of sheriffs out in Hampden County, was a social worker. But it's the fact of that, and as a manager as well, you have to have some management capability. But what I realized was that what I think makes me a good sheriff is the fact that I have a degree in public administration from the Kennedy School, but also the work that I did in the legislature, and even as a prosecutor on issues of mental health, public health, domestic violence, mental health and substance abuse, and all these things, issue of suicide prevention and awareness, all these things that I've been dealing with that prepared me for this job. You know, you never know when you take a job, all the things that in your life that suddenly prepared you for that job that you never thought about in the past. What is it about your past experiences that made you prepared for this job and make you a good manager or mayor in this job?
So I think probably two aspects of my background. One that I found very helpful early in my career was my undergraduate degree is in economics. And kind of economic thinking about problems and resources is really, at the end of the day, a discussion of trade-offs. The old guns and butter. So you can spend something here and get one result. You can spend something here. And so I think when I was being introduced to local government. And this is a classic first job out of college. I worked in the mayor's office in Gardner through what used to be known as the Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, if anyone actually remembers that, 1 year, and then I moved on to Pepperell.
Was that the CETA?
CETA.
CETA, I remember CETA, sure.
Yeah. And then the rest is history. It's been a great career. But I think that ability to frame things as nothing's absolutely right or absolutely wrong, it's all about trade-offs and where the biggest bang for the buck can be on a decision. And then I think the other thing that I think I've developed in my career and I think is very, very helpful in a community as diverse as Framingham is the ability to get people together and get past the individual problem that's the block onto something you can agree upon as the first step.
Right.
It's
right.
like, well, let's just park that for a
Right,
while
yeah,
and
yeah, right.
talk about does anyone not think that this is where we want to get to?
Right.
And I think I bring a unique set of kind of ability to help people kind of focus
How
on
to get to
what
the
we
place.
can agree on.
Right, right, yeah.
And we can come back to the tough problem,
Right,
right. In the future.
Right.
But let's take the step together and see
Right.
what happens.
Yeah. What about you, Mayor?
No, I think obviously being a CPA, helped me when I became a city councilor to understand the budget and keep an eye on things that some other people really didn't have some interest in. So I really concentrated on that. Spending 18 years in the city council, I learned how to work with the employees, with the different mayors. I worked on as a councilor with 4 different mayors over the years and saw as a councilor, we perceived they did well and what they didn't do well.
Right.
So I've taken that experience up to the mayor's office, and I've been pretty fortunate with the council the last 4 years. They've been very supportive of me. They've done a great job. I want to make sure we keep that going. But my financial background has probably been my biggest help. And then over the years, learning that you can't draw the line in the sand.
Right.
You got to be able to compromise and work collaboratively with the council, with different boards, and get the things done.
Right. And they always say that we learn more from our mistakes than our failures than our successes as well.
Yep.
What I find the best way to do it is to learn from someone else's mistakes or failures, and it sounds like you were able to do that, learn from their success, but also learn from their mistakes or failures too. I find that's the best way to do it, actually. That way you don't have to make the failure yourself. I'm a big believer in that. Well, listen, I've heard time and time again from municipal officials, school budgets versus municipal operations. Just a quick answer on these balances, but really the federal mandates versus local pressures issues that sometimes you may face.
Well, I think...
And by the way, and how is this administration, again, we've only got a couple of minutes, but Baker, Polito administration, how have they been to work with on a municipal level?
Well, for me, it's been great. It really has. We did really well last year with our local aid numbers, with our school numbers. They've been very supportive. Lieutenant Governor's been out to Marlborough quite a few times. The Governor's been out also. I've been a supporter of both of them for a long time, but I think they've been treating everyone fairly. They've been going out to communities and building partnerships with different cities and towns throughout the state. You can see it from his ratings right now. They're just through the roof. It's been crazy. I'm sure he didn't expect that, but they've been very supportive of the communities, and we have tough issues in the schools. When you start talking about school budgets and you try to hold them to that, that 2% increase, it's next to impossible. Schools is a funny thing, and the people on the school committees and the administrators, they have one thing in mind. It's to educate the kids.
Right.
And they don't see anything outside of their buildings, so it makes it difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
We've, over my term, we've had 4 or 5 different school committee members run for city council and have a totally different perspective when they get down there, because the pie gets a lot bigger. They got to look at the whole thing.
Right.
So
I'm assuming we've got to wrap up, but assuming the basic same situation.
I'll tell you, it's refreshing. I think both the governor and the lieutenant governor bring a very pragmatic approach. Let's find a problem and fix it.
Well, I want to thank Mayor Vigeant and Town Manager Halpin for joining me today to discuss municipal issues here in Middlesex County. I'd also like to thank them for their long-standing support of the Middlesex Sheriff's Office through our Youth Public Safety Academy, our community work program, and our many other initiatives, and look forward to continuing our work together. And thanks to all of you for joining us on this episode of Beyond the Badge Middlesex. I hope you'll tune in for future episodes, but until then, remember, life is full of choices. Please make good ones.